In this lesson, what we'll be talking about is the inverse function. The inverse function. Now, before we get to the inverse function, let's go back and talk about this particular rule. Remember, we have our x values and our domain, our range. And this function maps our x values to our y values. So let us find each of our y values, or our image, the image of x, the image of each value of x. So when x is 1, what do we have? 2 times 1 plus 1. 2 ones 2 plus 1 is 3. So the image of x is 3. So our rule here maps 1 onto 3. Now let's go with 2. 2 times 2 plus 1. 2 2 is 4 and 1 5. Let's complete them. 2 times 3 plus 1, 2 3 6 plus 1 is 7, and 2 times 3 plus 1, that's equal to 2 times 4 plus 1, that will be equal to 9. So our image values are 3, 5, 7, and 9. So this rule maps 2 to 5, it maps 3 to 7, and it maps 4 to 9. So we look in this function f of x maps our image, our x values to our y values. Now we want to find the function, and this is the inverse function. The inverse function maps our y values back to x. So we want a function that will map 3 back to 1, 5 back to 2, 7 back to 3, and 9 back to 4. What is the function that maps y back to x? And that is our inverse. That is our inverse. So how do we find that? How do we find that? It takes 3 steps. 3 steps. The first thing we do, we write our function in terms or equal to y. We write it equal to y. So we start by writing y is equal to 2x plus 1. We start that way. The next thing we do, wherever y is, we replace it with x, and where x is, we replace with y. So the step 1, make the function equal to y. Step 2, replace the value of y with x and x with y. So we now have x is equal to 2y plus 1. And then the third step, make y the subject of the formula. Make y the subject of the formula. So how will we do that? So we do that by taking first the 1 over. Since the 1 is added, when it comes over, we will have x take 1 is equal to 2y. And then we take the 2 over, and since 2 is multiplied, when it goes over, it will divide. So x minus 1 over 2 is equal to y. So what are the values of this function? The inverse function will map the y values to our original x value. So what we do, we will use these values as our input values and our answer as our output values. So 3, 5, 7, and 9, those become our input values. And let's see the output when we do that. So let's substitute 3 into this function here. So we have 3 minus 1, 3 take 1 divided by 2. That will give us 3 take 1, that's 2 over 2, which is equal to 1. Notice when we put 3 in, our result is 1. It takes us back to 1. So what do we, let's try the next one to see it's not a mistake. So where we see x now, we will put our 5. 5 take 1 divided by 2. That will give us 4 over 2, which is equal to 2. So 5, we have 2. Next, let's try 3. So we'll have 7 take 1 over 2, which is equal to 6 over 2, which is equal to 3. All right? So you see, the inverse function maps the image back to our x values, map the y values back to our x values. And finally, 9 take 1 divided by 2, which is equal 8 over 2, which is equal to 4. So you see, all of our x values, all of our y values, we're able to obtain them by using our inverse function. Now, one way of applying the inverse function is to help us to solve equations. So if we know the inverse function, let's say for instance, let's use the example we have here. Let's say we have our function, which is 2x plus 1, it's equal to 7. And we want to find the value of x. 2x plus 1 is equal to 7. So our function f of x is equal to 7, and we want to know our x value. If we know our inverse function, all we have to do is substitute our answer here, and we will know which value for x will give us 7. What x value substituted into our function will give us 7, or we will solve for x. So using our function there, to find that, we will have 7 minus 1 divided by 2, which is equal to 6 over 2, which is equal to 3. And if we were to solve it, we will see that we will get the same answer. So, and notice we will be doing the same process. We will be going the same process. Let's do it here. So we will have, let's put it here, 2. We're taking the 1 over, 2x is equal 7 minus 1. Notice we have 7 minus 1 at the top. So 2x is equal to 6. And then x will be equal to 6 over 2. X is equal to 3. So if you know the inverse function, and you're asked to solve for x, all you have to do is put the answer into the inverse function, and you will be able to solve for what value x is. Now we're going to do some more problems or some more questions in finding the inverse of a function. All right. Here is another example where we have to find the inverse. Now for this example, we have to find the inverse. We're asked to find the inverse of f of x. And then part 2 asks for what value of f of x is x undefined. So let us go about. So first we will find the inverse of f inverse. And this is another way we could write the inverse of f with a little minus 1 at the top, f inverse. So remember, the first thing we do, we make the equation or make the function equal to y. So we will have y is equal to 3x plus 2 over 2x minus 5. Second step, where x is, we replace y. And where y is, we put x. So now we have x is equal to 3y plus 2 over 2y minus 5. So, and the next step, we make y the subject of our formula. So first thing we need to do is to get rid of our denominator. Since our denominator is dividing, we will bring it over. The inverse of division is multiplication. So we will have x times 2y take 5 is equal to 3x plus 2. Alright? Now, next thing we will do is remove our brackets. We will multiply throughout by x, removing our brackets. So next we will have 2yx take 5x is equal to 3x plus 2. Now, sorry, 3y plus 2. 3y plus 2. Remember, we need to make y the subject. So what we will do, we will put the y's on one side, and we will take this minus 5x over on the other side. So we will have 2yx take 3y is equal to, bringing the 5 on the other side, 5x plus 2. Alright? Now, our next step, we will factorize our expression on our left hand side. So our common factor is y, so y will be equal to, or y times factoring out the y, we will have 2x minus 3 is equal to 5x plus 2. Now we will take our, since y is multiplying, we will take our 2x minus 3 on the other side, and since it's multiplying, we will bring it over and we will divide. So y is equal to 5x plus 2 over 2x minus 3. So y is equal to 5x plus 2 over 2x minus 3. So that is equal f inverse x equal 5x plus 2 over 2x minus 3. And we have our inverse. Now, next part of our question, part 2, asks us for what value of f of x is x undefined. Alright, so when is our function undefined? When is our function undefined? Our function is undefined when our denominator is equal to 0. Alright, now here is where we need to be careful. Let me just give an example. Now, if in your calculators you put 0 divided by 5, 0 divided by 5 will give you 0. But if you put 5 divided by 0, here at this point on your calculator you should see error or undefined. We cannot divide a number by 0. So when the denominator is equal to 0, our function is undefined. So for what value of x is our function undefined? It's when our denominator, which is 2x minus 5, when 2x minus 5 is equal to 0. At that point, the function is undefined. So what we will do, we will find the value for x. So 2x is equal to, take over our 5, we will have 5, positive 5, and then x will be equal to 5, bringing over our 2 over 2. So the function f of x is undefined. There is no number. There is no value for, no y value when x is equal to 5 over 2, or when x is equal to 2.5. So at that point, our function is undefined. So we will do another example of finding the inverse function. All right, now for another example. Here we have f of x is equal to 3x plus 2 over x minus 2. And we're asked to find the inverse of f of x, and then solve the equation 3x plus 2 over x minus 2 is equal to 7. And then we're asked to find for what value of x is f of x undefined. So let us begin. Let us start by finding the inverse of our function. Remembering the first step, we make our function equal to y. So y is equal to 3x plus 2 over x minus 2. Second step, wherever y is, we replace it with x. Where x is, we replace it with y. So we will have x is equal to 3y plus 2 over y minus 2. Alright? Next step, since we remove our denominator, right? We start with our denominator and take it over. So in bringing over our denominator, we will have x times y minus 2 is equal to 3y plus 2. So we remove the bracket by multiplying throughout by x. We will have xy minus 2x is equal to 3y plus 2. Now, we take all the y's to one side and bringing our y's on one side, we will now have xy. We bring the 3y over, that gives us minus 3y is equal to 2. Bringing our 2x over, that will give us plus 2x. Now, factoring out our y will be equal to, our common factor is y, so y times x minus 3 is equal to 2 plus 2x. So since this is multiplying, y will be equal to 2 plus 2x over x minus 3. So there we have the inverse, right? The inverse, f inverse x is equal to 2 plus 2x over x minus 3. Now, second part of our question says, hence solve for 3x plus 2 over x minus 2 is equal to 7. So once we have the inverse, all we have to do is substitute our answer 7 into our equation, all right, and we will get the value of our, or we'll have the solution to that equation. So we find f inverse 7, that will be equal to 2 plus 2 times 7 over 7 minus 3. So that will give us 14. 14 plus 2 is 16. 16 over 73 is 4. And 4 into 16 is 4. So when x is equal to 4, our answer here will be equal to 7. And we could check it back. 4 3s 12. 12 plus 2 is 14. 4 minus 2 is 2. 14 divided by 2 will give us 7 as our answer. So therefore, we have our solution to that equation. So the third part says, working on the third part, for what value of x is f of x undefined? Remember, function is undefined when the denominator is equal to 0. So all we have to do is make our denominator, which is x minus 2, equal to 0 and solve for x. So when x is equal to 2, our function there is undefined. So what I will encourage you to do is go to your worksheets and do some practice question based on what we would have done here.